What's up, everybody? It's Electric People. Welcome back. I'm Ty Williams, and this week we sat down with Bennett Geil. This is another franchise member out of our Central California, San Luis Obispo market. I think he told me there were 6 franchise members from that team. Just incredible. Bennett has been here for about 4 years, and if you know him, you understand a couple things about Bennett. Extremely loyal, extremely thoughtful, extremely intentional. And one of my favorite things about him is he goes for all of the things. A lot of people will say, hey, I'm going to kind of pick and choose. We actually talked about this in the conversation, but a lot of people will kind of pick and choose. You know, I'm going to sell a lot, or I'm going to focus on per rep average of my team, or I'm going to drive for recruiting. But Bennett is top of top in all of those things. He talks a lot about environment. He talks a lot about the community and his friends. But mainly, the thing that I liked about him is his kind of inner draw to uphold a standard for himself. He just kind of has this strong moral compass and kind of personal North Star that drives him to do things that are really awesome and super impressive. So he started out as a rep, went to a district manager within a year. By his 3rd quarter, he was franchise, been there ever since. Pretty awesome to see. Sit back and enjoy this episode with Bennett Geil. The street is where we create. We call it suburbanpreneurship.
Mixing big company resources with an entrepreneurial spirit.
This is Electric People. Well, thanks for coming down, dude. Appreciate it.
Stoked, man.
I was saying, we're getting to know your slow team pretty well, but hey, you guys have like the most franchise per team of, I think, any other team.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I mean, I think 2 quarters ago we had 6 people, which was amazing. And it feels like the people we have in our office, like there's just more and more that are capable of hitting it and want to hit it now. So it's pretty cool.
What do you attribute that to? I think of like talking to Corey on his, he said something that I think about it a lot, where he's like, it's cool to work. In slow, it's just cool to work. Like in some places, one of the best definitions of culture that I've heard is the way we do things around here.
Yeah.
So a lot of people think the culture is like the fun you have, or like the games you play, or the different, like, whatever, like the personality stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But your culture is also, it's largely what you do. It's how you work.
Right.
And so it's pretty cool that you guys have a culture of really high performance.
Yeah. I think that like started, I mean, when I first started back in Q4 of 2020, so Corey got there 2 quarters later. And then I remember talking to him because he had hit franchise before. And that was like my goal from
when he
day
came
one.
back.
When he came back. Yeah. Because he hit it in Thousand Oaks. I remember talking to him, and I was just like picking his brain about how to hit it. And then he goes on to hit it, I think 2 quarters later. I was like, okay, I'm going to figure out how to hit this thing. I'm going to talk to as many people as possible and just like really understand what it takes. And then after him and I hit it, I feel like there's a trickle down effect from other people. It's like you show people what's possible, and then everyone else is like, okay, what you can do, we can do as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like that's kind of like just the vibe that we've created, and it's pretty cool. I mean, Dean hit it, Sally, Craig, CJ, and then Cade. So pretty big list.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
You hit on something that's important, like core to like the Sunrun culture, and before that, the Vivint culture. We're a little unique in that we lead from the front. Like a lot of traditional sales orgs, managers don't sell, which is crazy. It'd be like if you're one of the best quarterbacks and they're like, okay, once you get to the very top of your game, stop quarterbacking.
Right. It's crazy.
And put on a little headset and like run around.
Yeah.
Have you seen that meme that says my favorite part of the football game is when they stop the game so that everybody can tell secrets in a circle?
No, that's funny though.
But you mentioned like a lot of people think, and I've had people reach out to me and say, hey, I don't need to sell because I've already proven that I can sell.
Sure.
Purpose isn't to prove that you can sell. Like, you're rewarded for selling from the commissions. You sell, you as a rep, you sell for income. As a leader, you sell for influence.
Yeah.
And so it's the reason we like watching athletes. It's the reasons that we like watching, I have certain like race car drivers or motorcycle racers that I just love watching. And a lot of it is because they show me what's possible. Like, I'm so inspired by people that do things that are outside of my capability, but also challenge you to think bigger. Like, the reason that you lead from the front is because it does make people more.
Right.
Maybe a lot of people can't see that connection, but you literally see it in your office. It's like you were thinking, okay, Corey's going to hit it. Then you were thinking, okay, I'm going to hit it. And then 4 other people hit it, and how much work was it for you to get the other 4 people, right?
Yeah. There's just a trickle-down
It's
effect.
the most efficient way to lead.
Right.
And so a lot of people will say, like, I don't want to sell. I'm just going to help other people.
Yeah.
The very best thing that you can do is beat them so badly that it raises the bar for everybody else. It's this weird thing that I've always believed, and it's almost like one of those counterintuitive.
Yeah.
It's, you know.
Well, I feel like if you're not selling at a high clip, no other person in the office is going to listen to you.
Yeah, they don't want to hear it.
Like even for me, like if I come off of a vacation, I feel like I'm pretty rusty and I've closed a couple of referrals. It's really hard for me to go out and give a pitch training because I'm not pitching or I'm not closing these fresh deals, I'm closing referrals. And so I feel like it's the same thing with hitting franchise. All of your trainings are so much more impactful.
Yeah.
The shadow sessions are more impactful. I mean, recruiting, everything opens up. And it's funny because my dad would always ask, like when I got promoted, I think it was a year in, and he's like, okay, so like, what's your new role? I'm like, it's the same thing. I still sell, and it's just more trainings and just, developing other people. He's like, well, why would you still sell? I'm like, because that, like, you have to. If you don't sell, you're not going to get anything done. And so I love that part about the company because, like, even seeing you guys, like you were out with Adler a couple months ago in the field, it's like, it's not just us that are in the field. The senior VP, Dave, showing up on a Saturday and closing 4, it's like, it's inspiring. And I think that there's the trickle-down effect even from you guys. So it's pretty cool.
Well, and honestly, where it comes from is Mary's on doors once a month.
Yeah,
Mary.
that's impressive.
Yeah, I mean, she just got listed in, Forbes top people for like climate impactors, Mary Powell. And she doesn't just go on doors once a month. She goes to the early warehouse meeting. It's like at 6 a.m., right? And then she'll go out to an install. And there's something to it. It's like me going out with Adler, that was a couple months ago now, but doing that, it's like a lot of people see that and they're like, oh, that's awesome that you did it. I'm like, for me, I have to do it for me. It's a selfish thing that I do because the market changes so fast now. Like messages change fast. Information travels quickly. We rolled out 3 new products this year. It's freaking January 24th.
Crazy.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
And so it's stuff changes fast. And so when you see it, to your idea of like your trainings being relevant and stuff, you just know what to do.
Right.
I know exactly how to price things. I know exactly like the distribution of how much of a certain adoption we can get by spending a day in the field because I can see it. I can interact, or I can see if our process is broken or clunky or the welcome call is too long or too short or too spacey, or you can see it firsthand.
Yeah.
And so it's funny because I always come out of the street with a whole list of things for the tech team, whole list of things for the sales tools team, a whole list of things for the process team.
Yeah.
Because you can see, so it's like, it's not just to be an example. That's where the work is happening.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like if you're the GM of a team and you never go to the stadium and you never see the energy, you never see how people are reacting, you don't see what merch they're buying, what songs hit, what don't, which players they like, which ones they don't, how they're reacting to the coach, how the general, like, I don't know how you run your business.
No, you're so disconnected from it. Yeah. You said I want to go back. You said, like you do it for you, it's selfish. And I feel like that hits it hits hard because I think about like when I don't sell or if I have bad weeks, like I don't show up well for my girlfriend. I don't show up well for, other people in my life. And it's like, that is ultimately the main thing that like determines not like happiness. Cause I don't attribute like, okay, I sold 10 this week, so I'm going to feel more happy, but it's more of like, that's the baseline. Like if I'm not selling, then I just don't show up well for the other people in my life.
Yeah.
And so I can always, and Alex, my girlfriend, she'll be like, yeah, you're just frustrated right now because you haven't sold as much as you think you can this week. And so it's funny, we kind of have like a back and forth with
that she is like patting her high performer's head. You're just a little pesty. You're a little cranky.
Yeah.
A little fussy. But it actually scientifically does make you happy. Like there's, they've done studies on like why writing your goals down or why like manual to-do lists are so effective. It's just this connection between your brain, right? Like your brain. Did you ever work with my brother Jordan? Like, did you work closely with him, or was he?
Yeah,
he's
a little bit.
Okay, so he says like these fascinating things that I've really like changed the way I think about it. But he says, your brain's job is to prove you right, And so, on like an evolutionary like scale, your brain's job is to keep you alive. It's not to make you happy. Your brain does not make you happy, right? It warns you of pain or whatever. It's the reason it's hard to get out of your car. It's the reason that in the first mile of your run, you start to think, oh, I don't have time for this, or maybe I'm going to shorten my run, or the first 30 seconds of your cold plunge, that you start to think, okay, maybe I'll just do 2 minutes today, not 3. Like your brain is trying to keep you alive. And so it's really interesting that when you do, it has these chemical rewards that aid in your survival. But what happens is when you do something productive, when you do something good, it rewards you with a little like dopamine hit, right? And so it's highly addictive. And so you can hack it. So when it can't tell the difference between fact and fiction, like your brain, if you're talking to yourself and saying, I lost it, I suck at selling now, your brain's job is to prove you right. So it's like, got it, you suck at selling. Yeah. You've lost it, I'm your guy. And so it will look for the selection bias and the confirmation bias and all that kind of stuff to guarantee that that's true, because that's its job. And it can't tell it. What it won't do is say, hey, Bennett, you're probably just being hard on yourself, man. You've sold hundreds of, it doesn't, that's not its function. Yeah. And so it's interesting that when you like do a to-do list or when you get a sale, what happens is you get that little hit of dopamine that actually makes you happier, and it makes you more likely to do it again. So eventually what I found with like high performing sales leaders is if you're not proud of yourself, it comes down to that. Like, are you impressing yourself? Yeah. Because you and your brain know where the threshold is. I actually don't, right? Like if you sell 1 a week from my standards, the business runs off that. So I'm good. You might look at it and you're like, I like soul and body know that I can do 3. Yeah. And so this one thing, I did 1, but it doesn't feel good. That said, when you do sell 3, regardless of the money, it like checks that box. You get the little dopamine reward and you can move forward, and then you're more likely to do it again. So it's like, it's weird when I think of like, when we say selling fixes everything, dude, it makes your relationship better. Yep. It makes your neighborhood better. You're probably kinder and more helpful to the people that you're talking to. Yeah. If you go into the gas station and get a drink, your energy, dude, it's different. I don't know how far it ripples out, but you do show, like, I'm a better dad when I'm doing work that I'm proud of. I'm a better husband when I'm doing work I'm proud of. I mountain bike better. Like all of those things, everything. Dude, you just work better. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I feel like that's something I kind of picked up on like early, where I tried to like switch it from the result of getting a sale to the hours I was working, the pitches that I'm going to do that day. Did I wake up at a set time? Like all these little things that were within my control. Yeah. And I feel like that's what really like, it made the job more refreshing and more fun when I realized like, regardless of the outcome today, if I do these things, I'm checking a box and I feel good about myself. And something I preach to everyone, it's like, if you're focused on hitting franchise or, getting drafted, it's like, stop thinking about the number. Think about like what you can do to get you closer to the number that's within your control. Because if you're focused on the other stuff, you get desperate, you can get down on yourself, you get negative quicker. So I've just found in life in general, it's like, I'm going to focus entirely on what I can control and just obsess over that stuff. Forget the outcome. Yeah, that's really good advice, especially in this, because you see it all the time as a leader and as a performer, but people that were like, cool, I got my 1. And then they go home. First of all, that's the hardest one you'll get. Yeah. Everything that comes after that is a lot easier because you smell like success. You just emit this pheromone that is attractive to people. Like you're confident, you are in a good mood, you're just vibrating better, right? And you also will see people that are like, oh, I'm so distraught because I wanted 6 and I got 5, whatever. But I do think you're right. If you can say, listen, I'm proud of myself if I work these hours, not if I get these results. Turnbull always talks about this where he's like, hey, people can say no. Like you can influence them, but you can't control them. And so it's like, if you're mad because you didn't sell 1, it's like, well, you have no idea what that person's going to do. They could do anything. They could attack you, technically, right? But if you're gauging your pride based on, right, I said I was going to work 6 hours. Did I work 6? Everything else falls in line, and the results are always higher than you would have set them for every single time. Anyway. Yeah, when I first like officially committed to hitting franchise, I realized, so Q1 of 2021, I did, so it was my first quarter out of Combine. So I did 9, then 11, then 17, and then 21 installs. And every single quarter I was like 9, 11, 17, 21. Yeah. But every quarter I told myself, I was like, this is the quarter I hit it. And I didn't really have like a plan or like a system in place to make sure that I was, holding myself accountable. And I was just so pissed off about it. I was like, you know what? Like I need to commit myself to a certain schedule and a certain system. And I basically broke it down into, okay,
I need to do a power hour every single day. I need to work out in the morning because that's what makes me feel good. I need to do some sort of sales training on the way out to Hood. I need to work for a set amount of hours every single week. And so it was 30 hours in the field of clock in, clock out. And those were the things I focused on. And I just let go. The first week of doing that, I think I closed like 9, and I hadn't done 9, I think, ever. And then that whole month, I had the best month of my, career at that point. And the next quarter I hit franchise, and it was like, okay, so that's the secret for me.
And what was easier, hitting 20 or hitting 11?
20 for sure.
It's weird, right?
Yeah, it's very strange because you're not like starting and stopping. It's like you have the momentum, it's there. Just let it carry you through the quarter. And I feel like you just start to sell more accounts. Right? You can think back on those accounts that you sold where you normally wouldn't have. Like I have the account I always think about, there's 2 of them. There's one so I was working, it was the day before Thanksgiving, and I had to be out there for like 4 hours.
Just last year?
No, 2 years ago.
23?
Yeah, it's funny. Like I still remember it. He's my oldest customer, Jim. He's 94. And
what up, Jim?
Yeah, Jim's the best. Still refers people now. Like he's amazing.
I hope when I'm 94, I'm like Jim. You know what I mean? Like, because you could be like cranky neighbor, or you could be cool 94-year-old.
Yeah.
You know? Let's all, hey friends, listeners, let's commit to be cool 94-year-olds.
Be like Jim.
Be like Jim.
Be like Jim, man. But I have like 4 hours left to go, and I think it's a Wednesday. Not that it really matters, but I'm talking to Jim. He's throwing me all these objections, and I end up like just transitioning inside, and like after I overcame his objection, and it was the easiest account ever. But I just remember, like, if this was like a normal week where I'm just kind of like going through the motions, I'm not selling that guy because I'm not present. Like there's something, and it's kind of hard to articulate, but it's like when you're in that mode and you're just like, you're in the flow, and it's like things just start happening for you. And I felt like anytime I need like some confidence, or I look back, I'm like, okay, when was I in a flow? Like, how was I responding to things? I always think back on that deal because I left the sale and it was like, it's a smaller commission. It was a smaller bill. And like, I didn't care about that. It was just like the relationship with them and the connection and just like being there in the moment. Like, I don't know, there's just something about it that has like stood out to me.
Yeah. I think about that kind of stuff a lot. It's weird because in order to do 20, you need momentum, and momentum is really fun. Right. So, Brock talks about that, he's kind of like your guys' founding father out there, but one of their values in Drip is momentum matters. And it's weird because it's like, I've talked about it a lot on the show, but I learned in cycling, like in triathlons, to pedal really hard in the downhill because you get a lot out of the pedal and it's not very hard.
Sure.
Pedaling really hard in the uphill versus pedaling consistently in the uphill, there's not that big of a difference in gain. And so when I look at doing 20, back to the brain chemicals, is like you're actually like experiencing more success. You feel better. You actually do.
Yeah.
And then you also generally get the extra 5, 6, 7, 8 from connections somehow, whether Jim gives you a referral or you have confidence or you talk to someone, you drop Jim's name, but they help, right? And so you're building community.
Yeah.
I don't know how to say it other than, dude, I'm telling you, doing 20 is easier than doing 10.
Yeah.
Now, it's harder to get the flywheel going, but it's just like if you've been working out for 3 years, a single workout session is way easier than my second workout.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. And I think people think, oh, that's so much more work. You had to work double, but it's like, no, I actually probably worked 10% harder and got 60% more result,
Yeah, I feel like the hardest part is just starting, and it's just committing to it. But it's like what you're saying. It's like once you're in that like first couple of days of sticking to this new schedule, it becomes easier, and then just becomes a part of what you do.
What was the other one? You said there was 2. You said you think back.
Yeah, there's another one. I was in Paso, and I'm like walking down the street, and there's this guy, like there's this house that I'd been trying to hit for, I don't know, 3 or 4 months, but they were never home.
How far is Paso from you?
Like 45 minutes. Yeah.
45 minutes is that's a healthy territory.
Dude.
It's like it gives you enough time to not go home, to get your portion of your book, to have a couple minutes of silence, to lock in.
Yeah.
45 minutes is good.
Dude, I don't like having an area too close.
Yeah,
I had one where I was like 15 minutes away from home, and I hated it because I didn't feel like I had enough time to like really lock in and get in kind of like your, not character, but just, I don't know, in your mode. But I'm walking down the street, and it's the house I've hit numerous times, and there's finally a guy out front. And so I go up and start talking to him, and he wasn't the homeowner there. And so I was like about to walk away, and then I just started like pitching him. And he's like, yeah, I mean, I live right down the street. And I ended up going over to his house, I think the next day, and locked him down and got a second property. But it was just one of those things of like being,
That's two.
Dude, when you're in the hood, like, and you're supposed to be there and you're showing up for yourself, things just start to happen for you. And like we always talk about, it's like you need to be in your hood constantly, and like good stuff will come.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a prime example. And just, I mean, there's so many other deals. Like the other day too, last week coming off the break, I mean, I had the most pitches I've had in years, but no ACs. I couldn't get anything to stick.
Yeah.
And
30 pitches in a week, I believe it was.
it was 28.
Okay.
28. And
Your friends talked about this last night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I'm
That's
glad
funny.
you're covering it.
I'm like walking. So I'm out there for like 3 hours. I walk past this house, and I've walked past this house probably 5 or 6 times. And every time I see it, I'm like, this is going to be a good house.
Well, and keep in mind, for people that maybe are newer here, a franchise leader doing 28 pitches with nothing to show for it, something's broken.
Oh, yeah.
But in those moments, like a lot of times it's like, okay, you know you're broken. You're already out. You just got to finish the game on a bum leg or whatever. Like a lot of times you can't fix it. And so the most effective thing to do is use your broken pitch to try to kick something. I've been there. Like,
Yeah.
But the frustration that comes, like you're probably used to like a 1 in 5 or 1 in 6. And so you're 6x outside of your norm, and keeping your head after a week like that,
it's challenging.
Right?
Yeah.
You start to think like, what is wrong? And then you get mad. So then you start to work faster.
Right.
And then you start to get shorter with people. You start to just run through them.
Yeah.
And they don't like that.
No. And I feel like if I'm ever in a slump like that, I feel like it's because like you naturally start to oversell rather than just connecting with them.
Yeah.
And anyways, I was like walking down the street. I had knocked the door, no answer. I walk like, I don't know, up the block, come back down like an hour and a half later, and I walk past the house again, and I just keep on walking. But then like this like quiet little voice was like, you need to go and knock that door again. I was like, kind of thinking about it for a second. I'm like, no. I was like, screw it. I have nothing to lose. I don't have a single bill.
What's the 29 pitches?
And sure enough, I pitched the door, and she's like, yeah, my parents been like looking into it, but they just didn't want to buy a system. Their bill's like $700, which is huge in our area.
Yeah.
So, and it just goes to show, like, if you keep going, like things will happen for you eventually. And I feel like earlier on in my career, like my cancellation rate was really high, and it used to like really bother me because I knew like you looking at other people's conversions, it's like, hey, his is 80% and mine's like 20%. Like what's happening? Clearly I'm the issue, or my process is. But back then I used to like just get down on myself. It's like, screw this, like just like a mental head case. Right. And I was thinking about that last week when I was kind of going through it. I'm like, no, I'm good. I just need to get one, and then the rest of the week will take care of itself.
Yeah.
And sure enough, by Saturday I had 2, and then on Monday I think I closed 2. So it's just like things happen.
The 2 thoughts on that. When I did a church service mission in Ecuador, so I learned to speak Spanish. And the one thing that I learned, like the physical view that I think of like when people are in a sales slump. Did you watch Ted Lasso?
Like bits and pieces of it.
Bro.
I know. I hate when people ask me that too, because
just get it done.
Yeah.
Just handle it.
Yeah.
By the next time I see you, I'll be like, hey, bro, you seen Ted Lasso? You're like, yeah, of course I've seen it. But they talk about the yips, right? Like the yips is like when you just like, go through a slump. And the yips are, I mean, probably at least every other quarter you get yips like that. Like it's been a week. I don't know. Doesn't work anymore, right?
Yeah.
And so when learning Spanish, I had someone go like this to me. And for you guys that are watching this on YouTube, I got 2 knuckles together, 1 thumb up, 1 thumb down. Slow down and speak up. Because when you're learning a language, everything sounds so fast. And so you want to sound like them. So you start talking all fast.
Yeah.
But you don't have the pronunciation and like the command of the language. So you're really hard to understand. If you slow down and speak up versus mumble and speed and speed up, then they can hear you better and they can understand you, but it's counterintuitive. Same thing happens in sales. Like you often think my words aren't working, so I'm going to say more. and I'm going to go faster so that I have enough time to get it in. You need to slow down and simplify, right? Say less. That actually would be 2 thumbs down.
Yeah.
Slow down and say less, right? Like, because you think about when you were new and really didn't have the vocabulary or the lines to give more information, you were simple by default.
Yeah.
You didn't have another option, and it worked.
It's crazy.
Then you learned stuff and you sold less, and then you figured out how to be simple.
Yeah.
You know?
I know. There's like my first close ever that I did by myself. Every once in a while I'll think about it, and I'm like, dude, how the hell did I close that person? I didn't know anything. I thought the 2.9% escalator was optional. Like, it could go up. And I remember on the verification call, she looks at me. She's like, wait, what? I was like, yeah, I guess it goes up every year. Like, good.
You're like, we're learning together.
We're learning together.
It's a lot at once.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a lot at once. Well, I kind of want to talk about how you got to this point. Where are you from originally?
Yeah, Fresno, California.
You're from Fresno.
Yeah.
And then tell the story about how you came to know of this opportunity.
Yeah. So I was living in Fresno and I was working at a country club. So I was working in the fitness center and then the tennis center. And worst job ever, by the way.
Really?
I mean,
People not cool to you, dude?
it wasn't that. Like the tennis center, I'm spraying down tennis courts in the dead heat of summer in Fresno. Not fun.
Like 1:15. And you know no one's coming out to play
Yeah.
after 11 a.m.
Yeah. So it's just you for 3 hours spraying down tennis courts. It was not fun. But so I was doing that and I'd worked at the country club for like, I don't know, 2.5 years. I was making maybe $13,000 to $14,000 a year.
And are you going to school at this point?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to school. I was doing an accelerated program with Fresno Christian University. And I don't know, I think I had like, at that point, I probably had 2 more semesters left to go. And so anyways, my sister had already moved out to Cayucas, which is like right next to SLO. It's like 25 minutes away, a little beach town. And she reached out to me and she was like, hey, you should move out to SLO. Like our grandparents retired in Cayucas as well. And then they bought a house in Morro Bay that she was living at. And I never really thought about moving away from Fresno. But when she said it, it just like felt right. I was just like, there's something here and I should explore this and just like, I don't know, see where it takes me. And so I thought about it for a couple of days and just said, screw it. Like, I'm done working this job. I'm ready for just a fresh start.
And your school was like remote stuff or something?
Yeah, it was all remote because it was during COVID.
Oh, okay.
So it was like perfect opportunity to move. So I moved over to Morro Bay and like didn't have a plan, didn't have a job.
Right. How old were you then? I mean, you're like 25 now, is that right?
I'm 26.
26?
Yeah, I think I was 21
Okay.
when it happened. So yeah, I go out there with like no real plan, but just like the only thing I remember is like a very clear decision that I wasn't going to like work a traditional job. Like I remember that being like the forefront of everything.
Interesting.
And so I go over there and like didn't have any money. And so I started to just get scrappy. I was looking through like all of my closet, getting rid of old stuff and selling it. At the time I was like drop shipping and it was random products. Like I remember we had a beach towel that like sand would go through.
Oh yeah.
And we were making like good money on it.
Hey, you sold a handful of those to the Williams family, dude.
Hey, there we go.
We're a target for that.
It was me. And so I was doing a bunch of like odd jobs and I was like, do you know Gary Vee?
Yeah.
Okay. So I was all into Gary Vee of just like, you don't need money to make money. He's like, you don't need to invest a bunch of money. It's like, just go and like, go to garage sales or go and pick up like couches and just start selling them. So I was doing that for probably 2 months or so. And then the gyms had completely shut down. And so I started to build these concrete weights where I was, putting them in a mold and then selling them to people who wanted them. And I was making like decent money doing that. And I just like, it's kind of weird how it all happened, but I had a buddy of mine who sent me over Think and Grow Rich randomly, just like open up the mail one day and there's a book in there. And like, there's a lot of like weird coincidences that I feel like happened leading up to this job. But anyways, I started reading that book and like, for some reason, my intuition told me, I was like, really take this book seriously and like study it almost like it was a textbook. And so I did. And I don't know. I feel like it opened up opportunities for me because like a week later, I ended up going back to Fresno and I was at like a party with a bunch of my friends and I see Adler walk in and he's got his Rolex on, his long hair and his red Tesla. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, I know most people around, like, Fresno's a big but small city where you gotta know everyone.
Yeah.
And him and I just started talking and he's super nonchalant about it. He's like, yeah, I mean, we just go around and see which homes qualify for cheaper power. I'm like, all right, well, I get that. But like, how do you, like, you're actually making money doing this, clearly. And he like downplayed it like crazy. He was like,
More or less than my prison weight set business.
yeah, right. And like we have like maybe a 5-minute conversation, but a week later, I just like felt this intuition to reach out to him. Like it was almost like a calling, and it sounds weird, but I just felt like I was being guided to do this whole thing. And so I reached out to him, and he's like, yeah, like come to Fresno tomorrow and come shadow me. So I went over to Fresno, shadowed him for like 30 minutes too. And immediately I was like, yeah, let's do it. Like I was sold on it. I was like, yeah, I mean, it makes sense for the customer. Seems pretty cool. I get to make my own schedule, and sounds like you can make some money doing it. So it was, yeah, it's been kind of crazy to look back on it.
The other thing, shout out to Adler for being the real kind, man. Like there's a lot of people that are like, yeah, let's, let me get you with my boss or whatever. But just, I love that. Just come watch me knock. Like just come watch me work, You describe yourself as a spiritual person?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. You seem to be like, you follow like a intuition, or you tend to give credence. I'm the same way. Like, and aside from just like spiritual stuff, like there's all these bits of information and data that we can't consciously like articulate, right? Like there's so much information that our bodies are receiving, and we filter it, right? And so a lot of times you think it sounds weird, but really you just can't, you're like your body computer is processing so many things. But it's awesome that you could articulate. It's like, yeah, I kind of had this like guided intuition towards Morro Bay, and then the fact that you had hustle in you, you knew you wouldn't necessarily do something conventional. You were so tuned to it that by the time you saw the opportunity, you could seize it.
Yeah.
I had an experience once. I remember when I was a little kid, I saw one of my dad's paychecks. I don't even know how old I was, but I remember the number on it. And my dad he had started out as as like a 19-year-old kid as a repo man at a bank, and really worked his way up, got an MBA, ended up being a CEO and selling multiple banks. He had this amazing career. But when I was a kid, it's the come up, right? Like you generally have kids when you're like peak stress. It's like I have these little bodies and I'm trying to develop my career. So the money is like, we're just middle-class family. And I remember having the conscious thought that the paycheck looked like a lot to me. Nowadays, it would terrify me. I have a big family, right? But I remember having the thought, I was like, I think I'm going to earn really well. And I didn't know what I was going to do, but I was sure of it.
Yeah.
I was just sure of it. And it not arrogant. I couldn't have been older than 8 or 9.
Yeah.
But I was like, I know that I will earn well. And so then it's like, I don't know if were you here when Jesse Itzler came and spoke to us? That was right after COVID, wasn't it? Maybe not.
Yeah, I wasn't here.
So he talks about how like the end of the movie is the same. This is how it's going to work out. It's like your idea of like, I know this is going to work. I actually felt the same way. I know that I'm going to be able to like navigate the financial world well. What's going to happen and what I got to do. All of that is not a factor. I don't care what it is, right? Like, I don't care if it's hard. I remember thinking that too. I had paper routes in Seattle growing up, and that's the worst in the rain every day as a kid. Your buddy,
brutal.
Yeah, your buddies are out playing, or you're wetting down a tennis court.
Yeah.
But it's funny because when you decide how the movie's going to end, the rest doesn't really matter. What if someone was like, hey, you're going to have an incredible family. You're going to have an incredibly fit body. You're going to earn well. You're going to have happiness. You're like, okay. And they're like, it's going to be really hard to get it. You're like, and?
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
It's when you try to predetermine, you're like, hey, I don't want to sell things, and I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And it's like, okay, well, you have to then be all right with where that path ends.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny that you say that, because I felt like at an early age, I was the exact same way. And I don't know when it was, but like, I mean, from the time I think I was in 2nd grade, I started selling candy bars at school. And then in like middle school, I was selling like soda.
I did that too.
Did you?
But I got high off my own supply. I was a sucker for the wild berry Skittles.
Okay.
And I would just like, I would about break even and had a pretty heavy candy addiction.
Yeah. And I still have a candy addiction. But
me too.
Squirt soda. That was, I don't know why, but people loved it back then. But I like always was selling something. And I remember
squirt soda feels like NASCAR. That's like maybe it's like early days of Thunder, but that feels like it would get advertised at NASCAR.
Yeah, 100%. And I also feel like it's not good in the can. It's only good in like the 2-liter bottle. I don't know why, but I I remember like having a conversation with my mom and my sister.
Sorry, it's pretty much straight lemon juice, but a little carbonated.
Squirt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're talking to your mom.
Yeah. Sorry. I don't know. I always get emotional too talking about it, but I remember having a conversation with my mom and my sister, and my mom was like talking to my sister and me, and just like, yeah, like who's gonna like take care of me when I'm older, and like what, like who's gonna do this and that.
How old are you at this time?
Oh, probably like 8 or 9. Yeah, probably 8 or 9. And my sister was like, "Oh yeah, Mom, I'm gonna take care of you." She's in like going to nursing school right now. But I remember like vividly, like looking at them, was like, "No, like you're not gonna take care of her. Like I'm gonna take care of both of you guys." And it's like it's something that's like always like just lit a fire under me since I was young, and it was just like the certainty of like I don't know how, but we're gonna figure it out, and like that's just like I don't think about it as much now, but I think it's so corely like rooted inside of who I am that like I'm just gonna take care of them, and I feel like it's having that like strong like why I think has helped me well in life, just because it's almost like set this vision for myself of like, hey, you're gonna provide for people, and it's gonna be fun, right? So I don't know, I think I can relate to that a lot though, about you just having that very like certain moment of like I'm gonna earn well. I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but we're gonna figure it out.
Talk about the dynamic with your mom, because you actually are fulfilling on that to some degree now.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I swear every time I talk about my mom, I get choked up.
I know how that is. Happens with my kids especially. You don't have kids yet, right?
No kids.
Just get ready, dude. You think
Oh, I'm excited.
right now you got a little nozzle that can regulate these tears. That thing's just broke open when like you got like these little Bennetts that just think you
Oh,
yeah.
my sister just had her first kid, and every time I see him, I'm like, oh my God, I cannot wait to have a little.
You just have one sister?
Well, yeah, I have, well, technically 2, but
Okay.
yeah. So my parents split when I was younger, and my dad remarried and then ended up having two kids.
Got it.
So Noah and Olivia, and then my older sister, Shelby, who's the best. I love her. Yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but the dynamic with my mom. So I feel like my mom like growing up, we'd spend 50-50 time with mom and dad, and my mom's side, like she's one of the hardest workers and just an all around good human being. But there was times in her childhood where, she was strapped for money. And I remember like feeling that really early on. And, like whenever we go to lunch, I would always ask her, I'm like, hey, is it the company paying for this? Or is it like, are you paying for this? And depending on her response, I would have ordered, an extra roll at sushi, or
Now people ask you that.
yeah, right. Who's paying for it?
Yeah.
They're
They're like, is this a you thing or is this a Sunrun thing? Like,
yeah, 100%. And so I feel like, there's a lot of other examples and stuff, but I just felt like at an early age,
you were aware of it.
I was aware of it. And then on the other side, like, it was more structured, and we'd go to church every Sunday and, get your polo on and get your hair ready. We're going to church. And I hated that. Like I would fight my dad on it every single time. But I saw like a lot of good between the two families. And I feel like it's helped give me perspective and like who I want to, like the father I want to be and the family I want to raise, because I've seen 2 different sides of it. Right. So I feel like it's given me really good perspective, and I have just amazing parents in general.
That's awesome. And you're, it's amazing that you seem to be a pretty like conscious kid, like a lot of times kids like splitting time between 2 parents, like you can't articulate it. You can't step back and be like, oh, this is how this situation functions. This is how this like dynamic works. And then draw your own like conclusions from it. But it's actually like the mark of like development is to be able to just take input and make a decision and then like architect the way you want it to be. So many people just think, oh yeah, well, my dad was this way, my mom was this way, so this is what I got.
Yeah.
And you're like, for some reason, this little astute 13-year-old taking notes and like making plans.
Like Cornell notes. I'm like, okay, I like how my dad said that right there.
Yeah.
That was good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's just, I think there's a lot of like I look at it now where I'm like, I don't ever want to divorce. Like that's just something, no one goes into a marriage saying like, hey, I want to have a divorce. But I don't I'm grateful that my parents did split because it taught me a lot, and they're ultimately much happier, in their new relationships. And I don't know, I think you can just learn a lot because the parenting styles were so different,
Mm-hmm.
so different. And so in high school, I naturally gravitated towards my mom because it was like, yeah, I mean, we didn't have to go to church on Sunday. We didn't have chores and all the boring stuff at my dad's house. But I've looked at that now. I'm like, there's a good, I basically want to merge those two and just right down the middle, like the parenting styles of having a blend of both of them. So yeah, I think I am I'm grateful for that.
My oldest is 15, and he's kind of in that. Like I see that coming out of him now. I've seen it coming out of him for a while, but it was funny. Just he has this really cool he has a really cool teachers at his high school, and they're doing a lot of life stuff. His health teacher's really into why this matters to you, not just don't take this and don't do this, And so I actually read this assignment the other day where he was to describe the kind of person he wants to have as a partner when he's older. And it was so awesome to see oh, you're kind of studying us and you're starting to make decisions about who you want to be, which is it's a pretty awesome thing.
Yeah, that is cool.
Yeah, and I don't know that I ever I think I always had a relatively strong sense of self, but I don't know if an adult would have asked me hey, what are your values? He can tell you. He's like, I want to be the type of person that's cool to everybody. I want to be a friend. I want to earn well. He has these things, and I don't know. I'm 15 years ahead of you there, right? But it's the honor of a lifetime. You're able to have this love for your parents and this respect for them, and this sense of oh, I want to actually. It's important for me to take care of my mom. You've felt that since before you could articulate why. But when you get to sit, life is crazy because it's those movies where you see something happen and then they switch the vantage and you see it happen through someone else's eyes? Yeah. That's life with kids, where it's you experience Christmas and then fast forward 30 years and now it's okay, now sit in the other seat. And you're whoa,
yeah,
it's so wild. That said, you have a really strong vision for yourself, whether articulated or not, which everybody says that about you. Generally when we do these, I'll talk to your leaders, I'll talk to your friends and just say, hey, what do I need to know? Everybody said he's extremely loyal. He's been hustling. I want to hear about the Kobe story, but he's been hustling since he was young. And everybody says he has this really strong sense to take care of people, especially his mother.
Yeah.
It's a pretty awesome thing. When you have values that are that strong that you can pull other 3 people that 5 years ago you didn't know and say, what's this dude about? And they all said that.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Pretty cool, man.
Yeah.
All before your age of 26, dude. That's amazing. So I have a question from Corey Wallen.
Okay. Let's hear it.
Ready? It's an easy question. Corey could have served up anything, but he cites you as one of his closest friends.
Yeah.
And I know you guys have come up in the hustle together and have shared a lot and think the same or similarly.
Sure.
But he was wondering, just look at the time that you've been with Sunrun. So what is that? 2 years, 3 years?
4.
4 years.
It's crazy.
All right. I started year 22 just this year. So hang with me, bro. Hang with me. I just interviewed my friend who recruited me into the industry. He's in 24. He's in year 24.
Dude, that was wild.
I know. And so I was telling him, I was like, dude, the decade used to be a milestone. You're coming up on the quarter centy.
Yeah, that's pretty nuts.
Yeah. So during your time at Sunrun, where have you experienced the most growth and to what do you attribute it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most growth is the personal side of things. I think just I was partying a lot before I started with Sunrun and just not making good decisions in life. And I think I was distracted and had poor habits, and I wasn't doing the right things, and I wasn't really happy with who I was.
You're just kind of in the unintentional flow. You're just kind of doing what people are doing and making the decisions that are easy.
Right. Yeah. I mean, every weekend.
Yeah, they're pretty normal.
Every weekend we were partying and I stressed the hell out of my parents too. So I'm glad I'm not doing that stuff anymore. But I mean, I think
you seem to have gone in and out of it quick.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think once I started with Sunrun, yeah, it was quick. It was very well, you can't be hungover on a Saturday trying to go out there. And
even still, you're 26 now. I'm saying a lot of people get started in those habits and don't pull out of them for a really long time.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel and I think just Sunrun, the vehicle that it is, it's if you like, there's so many good people around you and so many good examples. It's easy to look around and be like, oh, cool. Like they seem like they're doing really well in life. They're crushing it in sales. It's like, let me just see like what they're doing. And just like observing other people, I think you can quickly find kind of the blueprint and just the recipe for it. Let's say,
but hold on, I'm going to challenge you there because that seems obvious to you because that's how you were. It's really rare. It's really rare that like, even for me, it took me a while to see the opportunity. You got it pretty quick. It for a lot of people, it's like you look at the blueprint and the opportunity, you're like, it's high. Partying doesn't serve me.
Yeah.
I'm going there. And to you, that makes sense because you only have lived in your own head. But there's people, I promise you, there are people listening that are like, all right, I need to do that.
Yeah.
I need to do that now.
Do I think it's like for people who are aspiring to do more, it's the easiest thing, not the easiest to get rid of, but it's like the first step. Like focus on creating your foundation of like, hey, I got to get rid of any negative influences in my life, the negative environment, friends, relationships, vices, whatever it is. Start there and then work your way up. Like,
dude, let me make 2 references. So Matt Hines, market leader in Hawaii, I've known him for 18 years. He's on a real professional uptick right now.
Yeah, they're crushing.
Yeah, they're smashing. The team's going. A lot of good stuff from Hawaii. His podcast hasn't aired yet, but we did it when we were in New Orleans. And I was like, man, what do you like? It's like the first question. I was like, what do you attribute this uptick to? And the first thing he said was, I've been completely sober for a year.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It's like, this is a big decision. But then I was talking to, my friend, Eric Mealy, who originally recruited me. And he said that we spend so much time, 50% of success is where we spend 100% of our time. So the goal setting and the setting of your targets and finding out what you want, devising a plan, working really hard, being resilient, weathering the bumps, and eventually you get there. That's 50%, and that's where we spend all our time. He says the other 50% is your environment. Because you can have all of the grit, heart, determination in the world, but if you're in a toxic relationship or in an uninspiring home or you have habits that are weighing you down, like a lot of your success, well, you'll talk about it and you're saying it now, but once you start hanging with Corey, and once you start hanging with Sterling, once you start like talking with Dave more, once you start like shadowing with Adler, your environment drastically changed. Moving in with your sister, like I hadn't really thought of it like that until I did his episode yesterday. And since then I'm like, oh my gosh, like you could have the fastest car in the world, but if you don't have your fluids topped off, that thing doesn't work very well.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, I feel like it's easier. Like if you were to just like get rid of stuff, I feel like it's easier to propel yourself forward if you just get rid of like the negative stuff that's weighing you down.
Versus learning something, picking up a new habit. Like a lot of times, like we talk about this a lot in our like electric triangle, like our quarterly planning, we call it an electric triangle, where I'll always tell people when you're making your systems, what you drop is often more important than what you pick up.
Sure.
So rather than saying, I'm going to start doing this incentive in these meetings, right, look at the 4 things that take energy that aren't serving you and just drop them and see what happens. Like, ask yourself the question, what would happen if I just didn't do this meeting? And if the answer is, I really don't think anything, or honestly, like people might be happier, drop it. Yeah, that's the easiest thing in the world to do. Yeah.
100%. I feel like I fight that battle with social media all the time. And I'll get rid of it and I'll re-download it and then I'll notice like I'll just start doom scrolling. And it's like, okay, I got to get off this thing. It's not doing anything for me. And so I think just recognizing it, and I mean, it could be little things too. Like it doesn't need to be something, crazy, but I think just getting rid of stuff that's not serving you is the best thing. Yeah. Because then from there, it's like now you're clear-headed, and I don't know. I just feel like you can move quicker and kind of like understand what you need to get done now.
There's a book called Digital Minimalism by Cal Newport. It's really good for that. Because a lot of people, even that, they look at it like, okay, social media, YouTube. I freaking love YouTube. I have a lot of diverse interests. I'm really into motorcycles. I'm really into cars. I love snowboarding. I love surfing. I like guitar. I like really kind of niche interests, and the algorithm freaking rules.
Oh, yeah.
It so rules. Yeah.
It gets you every time.
Yeah. I can sit down and watch the exact thing I want to watch for 7 minutes.
Yeah.
And it fills me up. Anyway. And so a lot of times we think of things like, I don't want to give that up. And so what Cal talks about in the book is what you said is, how do I get it to serve me? Because technology should serve you. It shouldn't enslave you, right? but the monetary incentive on the side of the producers of the content isn't aligned with what you want.
Sure.
I want health, wellness, reprieve. They want attention in an unhealthy amount. And so anyway, if you're bored or you have a book that one's really good because it talks about how to set it up so that it serves you. And you don't necessarily have to quit it altogether. Like I actually really like Instagram because with my diverse interests, I have friends all over the country from this job, from just other things, and you do too. And so it's actually really healthy for me to keep up with them. I like knowing what trends are coming out. It helps me with my job.
Yeah.
But once it crosses over to more than like 20 minutes a day, it's no longer serving me. And then I also fall into I'm serving now other people, like my brain's being farmed.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a good book because, and I'm starting to think about it now with my kids. Like, what do I want them? I just listened to Zuckerberg's podcast with Rogan. Have you heard that?
Yeah. I saw the clip where he was lying about
Saw the bow and arrow.
Yeah. Oh, it was unreal. I was like, dude, you're
Only was sorry, awkward.
Hey, Rogan just kept in on it.
Just give it up. Just say, hey, you caught me. I actually really don't know what I'm doing. But when he was talking about the complexities of it, and he's talking about now he's going through it with his kids, like, what do I let them use? But I think in work, I think in relationships, I think in, like, you want to do well at things that you can just tell, and you do well at things. And so the question that I found best for what things should I start and what things should I stop is, does this serve me?
Yeah.
You think about your team. Does this combine me? Does this serve not necessarily you, but this is helping us, or is it not?
Yeah.
It's not, cut it. And then, okay, if we cut that, what then could we implement that does serve? I bet you people are doing, especially if you're burnt out, probably have 30% of things that you're doing that you should just stop.
Yeah.
You should just stop. And then there's, one or two things that you should stop. For you, it sounded like it was partying or whatever. You just stop, right? And then that frees you up to feel amazing so you can put into other things, and then you propel.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I feel like you have to really think about it though. Like,
Yeah.
even like, I'm just thinking about like, okay, like what things in the office don't serve the people on our team. And it's like, I feel like for me, it's not just a thought I'll have throughout the day, right?
Yeah, most people never ask that question. They just do the things that they've always done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like you have to be intentional about like setting time aside to just think.
When you think about the people that reinvent themselves really well, I think about Jay-Z, right? So Jay-Z's a billionaire rapper that sold drugs on a street corner. That's rare. There's a lot of rappers. There's one Jay-Z, right? And then when you think about like his early albums, what he was talking about, what he was doing, versus his later ones, where it's like, okay, now you're now you're coming at this from a perspective of, you own multiple wineries and you own real estate, and he's just, and everything's works. Like, he's regarded as one of the best lyricists, one of the best cultural contributors to especially hip hop, but like the general like zeitgeist as a whole. Like, he's indisputably a game changer.
Yeah.
But then he's reinvented himself so many times. But it comes from taking a second and asking the question, like, does this work? What direction should I go? Versus, we've always done it this way. Dude, I've always done it this way is a terrible reason to continue.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it won't work in your relationship after a certain amount of time. It won't work in your business because everything around you changes.
Yeah.
Dude,
that's why I love the end of the year, because for me, it's like, it's time where I can really analyze like how this last year went, what I did well in, what I can improve in, and then setting up, the following year. I don't know. I think it just gives me time to really sort through things. Cause with this job and everything else that, is on your plate with customers, with reps, there's so many different things that you're doing. And I feel like if you're not intentional about like putting time aside, just think through how you want this next quarter to go or year, like you just kind of float through life. And I hate that feeling. And I've caught myself doing it a couple times, and it's like, it's not a good feeling. But once I recognize it, I'm like, okay, no more of that. Like, I have to be intentional with everything that I do. So,
well, what's going to happen more and more if you keep doing what you're doing isn't necessarily just that the time's going to float away. It's that other people are going to start stealing it, and they're going to start stealing it in exponential amounts. So I can't remember who I was listening to. It was somebody, some content on the internet, and is there a more vague thing to say than that? It was some content on the internet. Well, yeah, but they were talking about, hey, you wouldn't let someone just reach into your bank and take what they thought they should have. You wouldn't let someone come into your home and just take what they want. Why do you let people just go into your schedule and just take your time?
Yeah.
And so you have to become a real guardian of it, because you're very like productive and your time, you've learned how to maximize it.
Yeah.
And so if somebody takes it, wastes it, whether that's a customer, a rep, your own lack of systems or whatever, you become a good steward of time.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
I know. I think about like this like kind of balance of being very selfish with your time and prioritizing the most important things, but then also being really selfless with your time. Being able to help and take other people along with you or go out and close deals for people. It's like and that's I wouldn't even say it's a balance, but it's like trying to figure out how to make the two work, where it's like I'm taking care of my stuff, but I'm also helping other people along their journey too.
Yeah.
So, and I think it's like, I don't think you ever figure it out. It seems like every week is different, but I mean, for me, if I don't plan my schedule on a Sunday going to next week, it's like, I feel crazy on a Monday.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't do anything.
Yeah.
Whole week's ruined.
It's because you're becoming more capable, right? Like anytime you take on a new phase at all, anytime anything in your life changes, you have to adjust for it in your schedule. Like
Yeah.
a promotion, a relationship. It could be a switching of a neighborhood and it's going to take more time to get the momentum up. It could be a new hobby that you pick up. It could be your mom needs your help a little bit more now. Whatever those things are, like anytime you have an environment change or a Bennett's world change, you've got to get in there and say, okay, let me move these resources around a little bit or else it swallows you up.
Yeah.
Like it's one of those things that I'm kind of dual role, right? Like I'm in the street and then I'm also like at corporate a lot. And I've learned that because I'm dual rolled and a lot of people are just singular rolled, I have to set the rules for my time. If I didn't do if my schedule wasn't somewhat framed out for next week, it's Friday. If it wasn't framed out for next week, I would look at it on Monday or Tuesday and it would be filled and I would have no control over it. And it would all be stuff that it's like, it's good. But Paul Dixon's the best at this. And it kind of drives me crazy because I'm like under him. So it's like when he changes his schedule, my whole world changes.
Yeah.
But he does not let things into his schedule that are not optimized. He just doesn't allow it.
Yeah, that's
And so, yeah, but it's because you got a mind like his and you tie it up in something that someone else could and should be doing. You've taken all this money, say, that could be earning and you've wasted it, right?
Sure.
And so with his time, he's a really good steward of his time where he's like, I need to be on the most important things for my role. And then it allows him to take control over it. But it's as you expand and are more capable, people will keep handing you stuff.
Yeah.
And so if you don't say, hey, this is how the business works, right? The machine, this is how I work. I have got to allow myself 6 hours in the street a day. I have to, or else I'm inefficient. So blocked. I have to do my power hours. I have to do my team. I have to do my prep. I got to spend time with my girlfriend. My family needs my time. Here's it all. Okay. Now what else do you got? That fits here. That fits here. That fits here.
Sure.
But a lot of people just allow the wave to overtake them. Like I think of like the influencers taking a picture by the water and everybody sees the wave coming except for them.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, what did you think was going to happen? And they're so shocked.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's like, I think you just have to, I think it's a choice. And it's like something that if you want more for yourself, it's like looking at your time is like, for me, that was the most impactful thing. Cause I mean, dude, before this job, I didn't have a calendar. I didn't have reminders on my phone.
Yeah.
My mom would call me. She's like, hey, you're supposed to be here an hour ago. I forgot.
I'll come right now.
Yeah. I'll be over.
Let me sober up and come over.
Dude.
Yeah. You just can't. I remember having the conversation with my wife. I think it was when we had our 5th kid. My wife is extremely present and she thinks for other people really well. So she's just like really in tune to like how everybody's doing and what she needs to do kind of a thing. But, I would equate that to like a lot of leaders that run their life off their talent. We have a lot of inherently talented people here. But when we had our 5th kid, her intuition and knack and talent for being present and knowing what to do was exhausted by the sheer volume of the logistics. Sure. And so it's like, hey, I remember having the conversation that, hey, if you don't structure some things here like this, like, you need some tools. Like your business gets to a certain point where you have to hire an assistant. Like we're getting to the point where if you don't like start structuring stuff, it's going to overwhelm you. And so she's, she got a nanny and she figured out a house cleaning schedule and but she still volunteers at the kids' schools. My kids play. If there's a thing happening in this town, my kids are doing it. Sport, play, dance, charity, youth activity, literally, if there's a thing, they're doing
everything.
And she's managed to level up and kind of like schedule. But it's like, hey, your life changed. You had your fifth, and the fifth seems for a lot of people, 1 or 2 is their breaking point. For her, it's like at 5, got to employ some systems here.
Yeah.
Now we have 6, and we kind of shift it, and it kind of works that way. But so many people never say, stop, take an hour, think through this. What's the best use of my time? Where am I most effective? What things should I do? What things shouldn't I do? Schedule those. And then when a rep's like, can you knock with me? You're like, yep, that fits right here.
Yeah. Seriously.
When you have no schedule, like, no, because I got this and I got this and I got this.
No.
Yeah.
And I hate that feeling too.
Yeah.
I hate the feeling of not being able to like give
Yeah.
that stuff. I'm reading 7 Habits of Highly Effective People right now. And it's talking all about time right now. And it's like most of us spend a lot of our time in the important and urgent section, but not enough in the important but not urgent section.
Interesting.
And that's the stuff where it's, you're making your electric triangle or you're setting your goals.
Ahead.
Exactly. It's how did he frame it? It was like preventative problem solving, which I was like, oh, that's cool. Like you're just thinking about, okay, what are issues that are going to come up? Let me get ahead of those now. And so I've been like really focused on trying to, set time aside to just like think through that kind of stuff, the life stuff,
You get it, dude. You get it.
Try to.
You get it. I think of it like healthcare. Like, think about it. Important and urgent is like, hey, we need to operate on you immediately. Or you are to the point now where immediate care is needed. But the important, not urgent, should have been like, hey, a year ago, had you started weaning yourself off that or started exercising more, we'd be in a different situation.
Yeah.
Again, that's like as you move up and up and up, that's the thing that's most helpful is you actually don't need me in helping you optimize your meeting. There's a lot of people that are actually more relevant for that. You need me looking 8 months down the road and be like, oh my gosh, there's a new product up there. We better make sure we're ready for that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then that's exponential with kids. That's a really exciting thing.
Sure.
All right, Dave Madsen, ready?
Mm-hmm.
You're trapped on a desert island.
Okay.
You get a 12-pack of your favorite beverage, Squirt, and either Sterling, me, or Dave to accompany you. Who do you pick? I'm just kidding. That he actually did ask you that, but I'm not going to make you sweat. It's Sterling. Everyone loves Sterling, of course.
Stir.
He said, what does a life that you're excited about look like 5 years from now? And then Corey jumps in and he's like, dude, or Sterling jumps in. He's like, he's only like 25. Give him 10 years. And then they're like, in 10 years, he'll be the president. So anyway, that's what happened. But a life you're excited about 5 years out, what does it look like for you?
I was just talking to my girlfriend about this. I'm trying to remember what I even said. I think the first one, I've thought, I've thought through it a couple times, but I think like doing some sort of nonprofit would be awesome. Like there's just something, giving makes you feel better in general. And then, the other thing I said was, do you follow like Sean Ryan at all? CIA guy?
I actually think I listened to something with him.
Yeah, he's got some good stuff.
He's not the one with the long hair, is he?
No.
That guy was on, I think he's on Tom Bilyeu's Impact Theory. He's a former CIA guy. He's got like really long hair, and I got clickbaited. He was like, I don't know if anybody's lying to you. I'm like, let's go.
Yeah, I got to watch that.
It didn't. It was a 45-minute podcast.
Like,
it was mostly normal.
I think I know who you're talking about, actually. But no, Sean Ryan talks all about like, he brings on these people who are like Navy SEALs and that kind of stuff. And I was telling her, I was like, I want to be a part of like a secret operation.
Oh, dang.
I don't know what I would do. She was like, well, you kind of need like experience for that. I was like, I don't know, figure it out. And I don't know why, but I'm like, I just want to know what's going on. I
have a feeling though, when you like feel a universal draw and set your mind on something, there's a good chance if I hear something to be like, hey, what are you in? And you're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah,
and
I can't tell you.
Freaking you. I know.
But yeah, I think like
that's cool.
Something like nonprofit. Like, I don't know. I just feel like I like that, or like being like just involved in business. I like the idea of like just growing things, and there's something exciting about it. Like my grandpa started up a business when he was younger. My dad still works there.
What is it? What kind of business?
So it's in Fresno. It's a security and then cleaning company. Cool. So they'll do like, security at malls or,
well, that's
hospital.
Yeah, that's their front job. Really?
Yeah.
They're these undercover operatives that are
seriously. I know. I've had my doubts about it.
Stopping us from going into a new world order.
Yeah. So I might join that too. No.
Maybe you have it in.
But
I think that's really cool.
Yeah, like something along the lines of that.
The cool thing is when I think back of the things that I've been a part of, I had like 2 thoughts on this in the last week. We're kind of planning our year and our retreats and things like that. And doing this interview with Eric Mealy yesterday. I mean, he's one of my closest longtime friends, and we have such a developmental relationship because we came up doing this together, kind of like you and Corey, And we had this experience where I found the video the other day. We went down to Mexico and we built an orphanage. And so where we were in Mexico, there's all these like discarded children, like their parents are in jail or their parents are dead or their parents can't take care of them. These kids are just kind of like, it's Mexico, right? So it's not like they go into the system in the same way. And so there was this need where it's like, these people need a facility because there's people that want to help, but there's not a place to put these children. And so we went and we built this thing, and it was cool. Like, it was amazing to do it. And I think, we probably had 20 people there. I think the building cost us maybe $20,000 to build. Mexico is easy. And then I think about it. I built 2 homes with that organization. The thing that I'm stuck thinking on is the guy that runs it. His name is Brad Christensen. Then the charity is called Spark of Hope.
Okay.
I check in with him every now and then because I keep trying to line things up to go down there. But that dude is still doing it. And I mean, he's probably, I don't know how, I mean, he goes like maybe once a quarter and has been doing it for, that for me was 12, 13 years ago.
Yeah.
So he's been doing it before that. So what he does is he basically linked up with a group down there who finds these families and people that have a need. Then he gets a group like us that wants to go. They go to Home Depot, they buy the supplies, and you got Spark of Hope. It's not hard, right? But he's dedicated himself to doing it. And I'm like, dude, Brad, you're a freaking hero.
Yeah, that's
what
awesome.
A cool thing. What a guy, a guy that has provided safe dwelling for hundreds and hundreds of people, which is awesome. The other thing that I was thinking of, I might have told this story on a podcast, but as a culture piece, all of the sales teams I've ever been a part of would do regular service. It wasn't my idea. It's like, as I came in, that was always a thing. And so, first of all, if you're listening to this and you have a team and you're not doing a quarterly service project, you have to do it. You have to. 1, it's your obligation to give back because you're pretty blessed. But 2, I don't know how you run a team without an element of giving back. I don't know how you're missing something. How do you have a relationship without serving your partner? Something
Sure.
is missing. But we were in Kansas City, and there's this charity at Vivint called Vivint Gives Back. And so they kind of line you up with opportunities. And we hadn't done our project yet, and everybody knew it was important, but we kind of just didn't do a great job planning. And I saw a thing on the list that it was like, hey, these kids in this downtown Kansas City crime rate at the time was just terrible. Outskirts were good, but the downtown really was suffering. And they were like, hey, we have these kids that are at a Boys and Girls Club or at a YMCA or some program like that. And they're like, the biggest need we have is we need people to read to them. And so I looked at it, I was like, let's do something bigger. But then it just kept coming back to me.
Yeah.
And so we picked it. To date, it is one of my favorite service projects that we've ever done. It was me and my best buds. We went downtown Kansas City and we all walked into this place and literally kids piled up on our laps and we read books to them. And it was as I looked around the room, I was like, some of the people I respect most to have kids don't have anybody to read to them. It's the saddest thing ever.
Yeah,
Dude.
seriously.
And to see my buds with these kids on their lap that they didn't know, saying, oh, look, this is an elephant. Would you get it? What sound does that make? And I was like, this is the best. I still think
That's
about it.
pretty rad.
Dude. That was in 2012, 2010. It's 14 years ago, dude.
If you're listening to this and interested in joining our teams, DM us on Instagram at Run the League.
What are you waiting for? Run the league, shoot us a DM, and let's get going.